they gonna be on the TV?
No,
This is all we get?
because
Must get a discount this year.
I don't know.
No
We better-
presentation.
Better take it up with Tom, huh, Kelsey? No, because
Are you from Abdu?
Kelsey's from
okay.
Abdo, yeah.
All right.
No,
that's
because
good.
we don't have a very good, like, signal and everyone else is on Wi-Fi unless we have a computer actually like with an HDMI hooked in. It doesn't work very well, so we went this route instead, so a little bit.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Have a roll call. Anybody here for public forum? No? Consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're ready for the. I have.
No, I think you have to push the
Push the bottom for
bottom.
like 2
and-
seconds.
Yep. It should light up with a number
There it
right
is.
up here. Is it
There
on?
it is. That's on.
There it is. Yep. There you go.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Kelsey Larson, and I'm a senior associate with Abdo, working on our city audits, so our governmental audits. So tonight we're just going to go over a very brief overview of your audit results. You should have also been supplied with the audit report and the executive governance summary, which will go into a lot more detail than you're going to see tonight. So tonight we're just going to go over your audit opinion responsibility, your general fund, your other governmental funds, enterprise funds, and then we'll end with some key performance indicators. So as a reminder, as auditors, we are engaged to opine on your financial statements on whether or not they're free from material misstatement. We do this through a series of testing, whether it be inquiries with employees, getting confirmations from your bank, looking at invoices, really anything we deem necessary to form that opinion. And like years past, we did issue you a qualified opinion just because the city has not implemented GASB 68, which is pension accounting for your FRA. Other than that, we did state that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. Along with our regular audit testing, we also do testing on Minnesota legal compliance. Some examples of that would be making sure you're following contracting and bidding rules, have sufficient collateral with your bank, debt procedures, things like that. And we have no instances of non-compliance noted this year. Digging into your 2022 audit findings, I just want to say that these all are very common for cities your size. It's kind of a cost versus benefit thing of the time and the money to train employees and hire employees would probably be very significant for a city your size. So the first one, just saying that we prepare those financial statements. The second one being just a limited segregation of duties. You really only have one person in the office. Ideally, we'd have 4 or more there. And lastly, material audit adjustments, just stating that we help prepare those year-end balances. If we had not, your financial statements could have been materially misstated. Any questions on those? Results from prior year findings, only change here is that claims approval. Last year you had a legal compliance finding around claims approval. We did not have any non-compliance noted this year, so that finding was taken out. Getting into your general fund. So this first chart here is going to show us your general fund unassigned fund balance as a percentage of next year's budgeted expenditures. So you currently have a fund balance policy of 35 to 50% of those next year's budgeted expenditures. And as you can see, you're sitting quite above that at about 117%, which is really good. And you also can see from 2019 on, you're on the rise there. So building up a healthy reserve there. Your general fund budget actual. A couple things to note here is revenues came in over budget by about 40,000. The main contributor here was some unbudgeted insurance reimbursements, contributions, and donations. Expenditures came in under budget. Main thing there was some police services and streets and highways came in under budget there. So overall net change in fund balance was a positive about 53,000, ending your year with a fund balance about 855,000. Next, we'll break down your general fund revenues by type. Big things to note here is your taxes kind of vary just based on your levy and collections each year. Intergovernmental took a little bit of a decrease this year just due to you guys receiving small assistance last year that you can use on like general maintenance and streets and highways. And then your others increased just due to those insurance reimbursements, contributions, and donations. General fund expenditures by type. The biggest variance here was in general government, and it looks like that mainly was due to your visitor and community center, personal service, and some repairs and maintenance that were a little higher this year. And then also your transfers out, vary out, but those are really based on need, so it doesn't really say if that's a good or bad thing there. Your special revenue fund balances. Couple funds I wanted to just point out. Ambulance had a very good increase, about 65,000 this year. This was mainly just due to some increased collections on those charges this year, which is always good to see. Your small cities grants had a decrease. This was just due to a loan write-off this year. That park fund had about a $57,000 decrease. It looks like that was due to Trailhead Park project this year. And then on the bottom, it just shows you where those fund balances are sitting. Most of them sitting in assigned. That's just the nature of a special revenue fund. That we'll see there. You also have committed, restricted, non-spendable, pretty regular. Capital project fund balances. Your capital project fund had a decrease of about 87,000. You did have some splash pad projects and some plow truck purchases there. And then your TIP districts, you decertified number 6, and then number 7 and number 8 are still waiting on their first year of increment. Number 7 will be this year in 2023, and number 8 will be in 2024. And most of those dollars are sitting in committed, which makes sense for a capital project fund balance. Next, we have all of your government-wide debt. So the top just stating what debt you have in your government funds, what's outstanding in your maturity. The bottom shows your next 10 years of debt payments. So big thing to note there is you do have quite a big increase in 2024. So just making sure you have that correct in your budget and levy. Next, we're going to get into your enterprise fund. So these next pages are going to look very similar. This top graph kind of showing you the money coming in versus money going out, with the left side being your operating receipts and the right side being your disbursements and debt payments. So as an enterprise fund, you want to be making that money. So obviously we want that left side to be higher. So as the water fund is doing just fine there. Our bottom graph shows you our target cash balance, which is the following year's debt service payment plus 50% of those operating costs that we see up above. So as we can see, water fund's doing really good, sitting with a very healthy cash reserve. Sewer fund is also doing good with having more money come in than going out. It's a little bit of a less of a gap than your water fund. However, you do have your last PFA payment in 2023, so those payments will go down a little bit and should help with that gap, and should also help with our cash balances below. As we can see, you ended the year with negative $27,000 in cash there. However, you did go up quite a bit from 2021 where you're at negative 50,000. So as long as you can keep those receipts up and those disbursements low, I think we'll see that cash reserve gain and hopefully meet our target. Refuse fund had a little bit of a change this year. Looks like you guys switched vendors for your disposal, which had a little bit of a higher cost. The only thing I kind of want to note here is, as you can see on the bottom, our target cash balance did kind of have a spike due to those higher costs. And your cash balance did decrease, not by much, but I would just say if you're going to see those higher costs year to year, you might want to look at your rates, see if you can match that. Electric fund has been really consistent year to year, consistently having more receipts than operating disbursements, and your cash reserve is sitting in a very good place. Stormwater fund's doing even better. Set up to make your cash reserve good. If you have any capital projects coming up that you're thinking of, you should be in a healthy place to do that. Next, we have your cash and investment balances by fund type. So overall, you've consistently held that about $4 million cash. The biggest things to note here is your capital funds have been decreasing just due to getting those bond dollars and spending them down. And general fund had an increase, probably mostly due to those ARPA dollars that are sitting in there. Last couple of pages here are going to be your key performance indicators. So we're going to compare you to your peers. We do class 5 cities, which are cities with populations under 10,000, and then cities in Fillmore County. So on the left here, we have your tax rate. Overall, right in line with those class 5 cities, and you are trending downwards towards the Fillmore County peers, so nothing really to note there. Taxes per capita, you are above your peers and trending ever so slightly upward. Maybe just something to keep in mind during budget and levy time, that you're a little bit higher than your peers there. Expenditures, your current expenditures per capita, a little bit over your peers, but very consistent. I will say not all cities have an ambulance program that's as active as your guys's and the visitor center. So if those things are working for you, then that's fine that you're above your peers there. Capital expenditures really just varies based on your needs. As you can tell, when you don't have major projects going on, you're right in line and below your peers. So nothing really to worry about there. And that's all I have. Does anyone have questions?
No.
What, so our tax rate is in with the peers and trending down, but yet our taxes per capita is higher.
Yep.
So how does that reconcile?
It's probably just due to population. If you have a
The
low
size of
population.
the population?
Yeah.
Is that typical of the smaller the city, the more per capita, you would say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of a hard thing to say. We need to get this down if you're gaining in population.
So more people's key.
You need more people.
All right. Anybody have any questions, comments? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
The rest of your meeting.
Greenfield Lutheran Church forgiveness request. I would say I'd sent an email to people and I got the call from Dave. He said it was a outside source. So that water that did leak was leaking outside of the building. So in all likelihood, didn't go down the sewer. So I think we do have a opportunity to consider it. Is anybody here from the church? No.
With the request, it seems that there's been 6 months of increased billing. Is there a reason why the problem continued for 6 months and they're asking for that 6? I mean, if I see a problem, I'm going to fix it sooner rather than later. Stop wasting the water, stop having the expense come in. But if they have a reasoning, I suppose I'd consider it.
I think that's a valid point. It went on for quite a while, so.
That's my concern as well. I mean, it's a significant increase from December to January or November to December. I mean, that could have been noticed and caught right away as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So with that, I'd consider maybe 1 or 2 months until that problem could have been fixed, but if the problem was just known about and not fixed for a half a year, that seems a bit negligent on the part of the payer.
They're pretty consistently in the
You
$30 to $45 range, I'd say. A couple months a bit lower than that. That might have been when it started leaking. 20.
Yeah, I should have been caught sooner, so.
The average use, if you take June, July, and August, the average use per month for their sewer during normal usage rates or usage time would have been $23.65 a month would have been their sewer fee. So
Like Michael said, yeah, I guess if there was some reason for it, I guess an explanation of why it took 6 months.
Yeah.
Months to-
Otherwise, I'd be looking at maybe forgiving 1 or 2 months of the difference, not 6 months.
So just 1 month alone, subtract here. Just 1 month alone, let's say you look at May, if you take that $23.65 off of what they paid for sewer, it was $323.56 for 1 month.
You had the normal marked at 51,
Yeah.
$51.
51.74.
I don't know if that's normal or an average or what you came with from that.
That probably was an average over a longer period of time.
Well, it started.
That's
trending,
November.
It's November's reading, but if you go back to April of last year, even February
Well,
of
that's 21.
22,
Yeah.
January, December of 21. It's trended higher there already. I think
Yeah.
that number's fairly accurate at 50 something.
Actually, that usage that I gave you with the 25, that was only of like 750 to
Yeah,
or
if you go-
500 to 750 gallons.
Yeah,
So
if you go way back to 21, they were using that, but
they were, yeah,
22 looks like there was more water usage,
more average.
more closer to that $50 average.
Because even in February of 22 and March of 22, I mean, they doubled their water usage from January of 22 to February of 22. You look at that, their water usage is double there. From 3360 to 7660.
I forget what our charges are, but I think at a very heavy usage like that, we charge a lower rate.
It's all the same.
Hmm?
It's all the same.
It's all
All
the
the
same,
same.
even for industrial,
Yeah.
commercial?
Yep.
It is?
Yep,
Okay.
it's all the same. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. If I do remember correctly. Yeah. It's all the base.
And I think the one thing I consider here is I don't think the water went down the sewer, so we didn't really have the costs that would be associated or supported with that.
I'll make a motion to forgive 2 months worth of sewer overage.
At like 250 a month, are you thinking, or the whole thing?
No, not the
Because they
whole.
would typically
We would
have,
do an average, take that average, whatever that is, if you want to use 51 for the average.
So I
well, I'd
just,
say just pick a number if you want 500 or 600
It's
or,
gonna be clear, just to pick a number.
Huh?
It's gonna be clear, just to pick a number.
right.
Let's just, I'll make a motion for 600.
I'll second that motion. Any?
600.
Yep. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay. Motion carries. Uh, Resolution 2306, accepting the library donation.
yeah, so this was actually brought up. This is probably something that we haven't done in the past. The library had received, as per the resolution, it was $1,820 from the Paula Michael Smutny Memorial to be used towards the circulation desk. And according to league procedures, we should be, when we receive in any kind of public donation like that, that is specifically earmarked for certain projects, we should be making a resolution. So
We should what?
we should be making a resolution to
Oh, I
accept
see.
those donations,
Okay.
the gifts. So that's what you have presented to you tonight. That
And
went
is that
into,
going to go towards the circulation desk that's already in?
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that was put into the library donation fund. Or will be put into, or is put into the library donation fund for that expenditure use only.
Is that expenditure completed now, or they're still,
They
and it
wanted
was
it,
more than that amount? So this will reduce the cost?
this will reduce the cost. The total cost of the circulation desk was $7,500.
Oh, okay.
So.
I make a motion to accept resolution 2306.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to approve resolution 2306. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Next up is the sheriff, and he is
On his way.
coming.
All right, well, let's move on to building and maintenance. We have a wastewater treatment. Anything from there?
We had a snafu last month with our email, and I did not get the May report. So you have 2 reports in there for May and for June. So
All right,
Other than that, I would say that we did order and get the new city truck. We did a budget of 50,000, not to exceed. Talked to Randy Barnes with McKeon, and we found one for $45,850 before any fees. Looks like with the fees, it was $46,004. That is here. It's been delivered. They're currently using it. It needs to get lettering done yet, and a few odds and ends to make sure we don't beat it up too much before we send it down the road again.
one of the things Brian did bring up was that because he is out and he makes frequent stops putting a light on top like his other truck had. They're looking for that yet, getting that wired in, but I think Corey did maybe the last one, or has done some other.
Yeah.
We can take care of that.
The tractor is being used. That's been swapped out after the last meeting. Otherwise, not much to report.
Did the bucket issue get resolved, or is that?
We dealt with the bucket. It was built into the price, and they trade a bucket in. What I would suggest in 5 years, when we go to replace this tractor, that whoever may be on that board building the tractor, go through it a little bit differently. The tractor that was purchased was already ordered. There's some snafus with all of that, but what we talked about last meeting was that typically how it was done was the tractor was traded, basically Hamel Equipment purchased a bucket, we kept our bucket, they kept the new bucket. So we just kind of left it, but the next purchase, I would look at that a little bit closer.
Okay. We'll move on to EDA. Everybody can see the minutes there. I'd say one thing we discussed was workforce and the related housing or
Affordable housing needs.
affordable, yeah, and we didn't know what kind of term to put on it because affordable housing can mean subpar or lower standard. So anyway, the EDA is planning to put together like a discussion group. Anybody who's interested, stakeholders. Anybody else have anything else to add for EDA? Harmony Chamber. Anything to report?
No, I just want to thank the city for their help and support over the fourth, so thank
Mhm.
you for all of that. It's very successful. Appreciate it.
Yep, I thought it went well.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. That's good.
Did Park Board meet?
We met last night. Not a whole lot. Trees are ordered. There was a total of 41 trees ordered through that program. Not sure if we're gonna get all of them because the treehouse might not be able to fulfill all the orders. We're gonna do a park tour again, just to make sure that everything we looked at the beginning of the year, to see where we're at, if there's anything that needs to be completed that hasn't been completed, or if there's anything new that we need to deal with there. The only other thing probably that's of significant discussion surrounding the splash pad hours and usability. It was decided not to change them at this point, even though we're using a lot of water.
It's good. We wouldn't want to have it and not use much water. It's about all it does. All right. Library Board?
Library board met yesterday. We had a biannual report, and patronage to the library continues to be strong. So that's good news, but otherwise nothing big to report.
Okay. Arts Board?
And arts, we have some events for the future. We're discussing a community sings event for the late summer or fall, with more details to come about those events.
Good. Anything going on with the fire department?
No, other than I would say the fireworks show was a success and it went off without too much of a problem.
I think we did have a retirement, right?
We did have one retirement, effective over the weekend, basically.
Mhm.
Accepted at the last meeting. But we're still strong in numbers, so we'll see if anybody applies coming forward.
Just put it in for Blaine Gotsky retired after, I believe, 30
30
years.
Wow.
30 years of service. Then we can wait for the sheriff.
He's right there. He will be pulling in a lot in a minute.
He's on time.
We're fast. Were we talking semis tonight or not? Parking?
Public forum
But it didn't come up. Okay.
did not,
Okay.
but it could come up because it was in your EDA packet. I've received a few complaints. I know Jesse's fielded a few complaints. And just, what do we do? We have,
Well, I think we have an ordinance against it, so they should get a warning and then a citation if they're parking on the city streets.
It's not the issue.
no,
The issue
the issue is
that
in,
they feel that they're targeted number one because you changed that, or we changed it, and they should say that.
Not the ordinance.
We changed it from, yeah.
We changed the
personnel like that.
parking, and the parking was that they were to park out there. This is the problem. And it's like I said in the meeting last month, we should come up with a solution to fix this problem. Yes, we have an ordinance that did that, but we've allowed that to happen for so many years out there. And that's where we told them to go park.
Mhm.
That by changing that, and I personally called everybody but one and talked to them about their trailers. And that is the sentiment that I got on every single one. If you want to call them all, you absolutely can. But they live here, they pay taxes here. They are unique because of their job. Their job is a rolling office, it's a rolling business.
Mhm.
And every other business we cater to, now we just told them to go away. No solution.
We didn't give them a solution, but,
That's my point.
mhm.
Just told them to go away.
we did discuss it, planning and zoning last night. With the comp plan coming up, is that something that we look at? I've talked with Chris Geeson, if is there a lot available that isn't really saleable, you can't really do much with it, can we put some gravel down and make a spot for them? But then
Well, I can think
I
of-
also get the question of, well, what do other cities do? And Preston, I think, has the spot down
Down by Preston, the old
By
Preston
the
Darien Farm, they park
yeah,
on
the
the
old
street.
Darien Farm, and
Spring Valley Parks there is across from the utility plant. They have a lot there that they allow them to park in.
right. But-
Canton's just outside of Canton. Sarah's Preston Darien Farm allows some of them to park there. JJ Mensick allows a few to park at his business. It's hit and miss throughout the county, I would say. But the ones that continue to do it or did it for a reason. The ones that haven't really done it prior, is what I'm gonna say.
Mhm.
Fountain, there's a couple that park and it's private. But we don't really have a good private spot to put them here either, so.
I can think of a couple. We've got out near the tree dump. There should be some space out there. A lot of the construction work for the
That's,
cable was parked out there. That was heavy equipment. We also have I was just thinking of the road between just south of the
the nursing home.
nursing home
Mhm.
could hold several trucks, 2 or 3,
If they
maybe
park
4.
yeah, depending on the park, yeah.
How many would you guess we have?
I would say on average, there's only 1 or 2. We've had upwards of probably 5 or 6. And they're not all semi-tractor trailers. There's a mix sometimes of
Flatbeds and goosenecks.
gooseneck flatbed trailers and that. So,
Any room at the city shed, Terry?
I don't think there's room to make that work there.
Okay.
If the township, like where the seal coating people are parked, that's an option too. They park back there. But that would be, again, the township would have to allow them to park there. Maybe they will, I don't know.
That'd be a discussion. We could talk with the township to see if that would be something that they'd be
Open to.
open to it. And it's very temporary. It's usually only for a weekend, a couple days,
A week here and there.
or a week. Yeah. at
I think a
most.
short-term solution could be, to just decide to not enforce the semi-parking ban. south of the care center.
In the tree dump lot, that would take care of all of the trucks. If we had 5 or 6, I think 5 or 6 could fit back there. No?
Depending on how you stack them in there.
Yeah,
And time of year, I mean, how.
Might need the
sturdy a
drive-
parking lot you
the
got
drive work done and gravel. That
Well,
it's
yeah.
pretty expensive to gravel, so.
there. Yes.
So. I don't know that we have a permanent solution, but
I understand the feeling completely because we did allow something and now we've said, well, we were doing that because it wasn't in use, but now when people have bought that property out there, it's not fair to them to go tell people to park in front of their property. So,
well, I can't. tell
when we
people not to
say-
Park in front of my property, so
what's that?
it's public parking. So it's, I disagree with your comment on that. We changed the parking to allow no overnight. Now, if I want to go park out there, I can park out there. I don't park out in front of anybody's business. Doesn't mean I have to do business there. I just have to move my vehicle, so I'm not parked there overnight.
Right, but this is specifically for semi tractors and trailers, I
You
believe.
know?
The
We changed it for the streets, yes, I
The
agree with
ordinance,
that.
yeah.
But we allowed them to go out there.
Mhm.
So if you're saying that,
I'm saying we allowed it because the city owned all that. Now some people have bought it. And, it's like, we don't tell all the semi trucks they can park in front of my house.
that's what I'm saying. They could, if somebody wanted to come in with a truck and trailer and park in front of your house, they could. We're specifically
But you're not
talking
gonna
about
enforce it, right?
I
truck and
think,
trailer right
I
now.
think our
Pickup and trailer,
ordinance-
that doesn't
I
apply.
think
to
our
me.
ordinance is against that.
No, if I want to take my pickup and my trailer and park it on the street in front of somebody's house, I can do it.
Yeah, but I'll have to look at the ordinance again. I think it
Different than a
says,
semi-trailer. It's a
What's that?
semi-trailer is restricted.
yes, that's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. Semi trucks and trailers.
Yeah.
Semi trailers.
I know.
But why are you accommodating one business down there and not accommodating the rest of us? You're accommodating Mr. O'Connor, and yet we as semi-owners live here in town, and you're accommodating him after 2 years because he's finally building a business. What type of business is he going to have on the weekends that we can no longer park there? That's going to interfere with his business?
Well, I would say it comes back to the, before he bought that property, it was city property, so we told people that there's that semi truck and trailer parking ordinance, but we allowed it out there because it was city property and vacant land. Now, when somebody owns it, it should have the same rules as the rest of the city. So I think,
I
We
personally
just
don't
need to-
park on his side of the street. I park on Poet's side, okay? But I feel targeted that you or the city council made it that we cannot park in the city at all. Okay?
yeah, I think that was done before
Before
these
he goes.
counselors were here. So,
What I would have said is I think that it was handled too hastily. I think that those people were not informed. You made a decision, we made a decision. The EDA made a recommendation to the council. And the people that are affected were never brought to the table.
Correct. And everything that y'all own, we all bring to you. Just like Mr. O'Connor out there, everything that he owns gets delivered by somebody like us.
well, right, and they can't deliver it if there's a bunch of trucks
Correct.
parked in front of his property, they can't make the turns to
Just
get
like-
it delivered.
Hego, at night, they have trucks that are parked in their parking lot overnight, sleeping there, that deliver to them. in the-
That's private property,
I
that's fine.
understand that, I'm just giving you an example.
Right.
They are parked there overnight, delivering there in the morning.
Well, don't
So-
get me wrong, I think we should find a spot for them. I'm just saying that because now that property is more like owned by somebody that's not the city, we should find a different place.
And that's all I'm asking for, is to find a
Mhm.
place here where I can put my trailer when I come home every 4 to 6 weeks,
Mhm.
that I don't have to drive 8 to 10 miles to get to.
Yep.
Where I live.
Well, I think we
And
can,
I'm okay with down by the nursing
the
home.
care center.
I'm not so sure that I'm okay out, by the compost pile where you guys are gonna have to pay to gravel it, because in the wintertime, that's gonna be really hard to get in and out of in the snow. I'm gonna get stuck. There's not gonna be a tow truck that's gonna be able to come and get me out. And as you all can see, my semi's not conducive to,
Mhm.
getting towed very well.
Yep.
I mean,
I think Greg can correct me if I'm wrong. I think back when we were discussing the snow parking and that ordinance, we were told that generally, if you make a ordinance or restrict parking, you tell people where and when they can't park, rather than trying to figure out everywhere they could possibly park. So I think the city streets in front of owned property is what the ordinance pertains to. So I think we should find a solution. I think unless anybody disagrees with
Oh, I think we
south of the care center, we could say that for now and keep looking for more.
Yeah.
They might be spread around. I don't think, everybody doesn't have to park in the same area, but if there's enough
Typically,
spots.
It's not probably too big of a problem.
Mhm.
Not usually. Last night it was brought up at planning and zoning, just the discussion. And it was a healthy discussion, mainly because, one of the members had said, well, I saw these trucks parked in the fire department parking lot. What happens when you have a fire? It's a public parking lot. They had nowhere to go. And they just needed a place to rest. Well, not that we necessarily need designated, but it's good to know that people are watching out for that, because it's something that we wouldn't have thought of,
Mhm.
right? But a solution would be, or even just a temporary solution until we could figure out something more permanent, if we were gonna go that route, would be great.
Mhm.
Last thing we need is a fire call and someone parking the
The
parked in the
one-
parking lot,
The one
and we need
preference
access
that I
to it.
would say, if we're gonna do
the only
south
thing.
of the nursing home, is that street in the wintertime gets plugged down there.
Mhm.
But just be mindful of it, and I know you are, Tanya, about that, but, so that's, could become an issue. Hopefully,
What do
we
you mean it
find
gets plugged?
when it blows snow in there,
With snow, it gets really drifted in.
that's a bad spot down there. But
Right.
For summertime, I think it's great.
Just to clarify how our ordinances actually read, the prohibition on tractor and trailer parking is residentially zoned areas.
Okay.
And then,
Okay.
and
You guys read the parking
anywhere,
regulations?
anywhere else, the city would post no parking would also be off limits. So those are the two
So
prohibited
that wouldn't
places.
be residential
Mhm.
down there, and it would be fine, so. And I don't believe there's no parking down there, I'd have to double check.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't all look at signs.
Mhm,
That's
right.
what I would say.
Yep.
Including myself.
Did you have a question or a comment?
Like R2 or something like that mattered then, like if it was zoned R2, it's still residential.
That's
but,
residential.
yeah.
So that would be out of the question. It would be commercial, industrial, or ag.
Or private property.
Correct.
Mhm.
So I think that's the solution for now, if everybody's agreeable to it. And we'll keep looking, and maybe anybody that's,
Hopefully we can develop another street in the industrial
Maybe that-
park
I
and they'll
think
be able to
that's-
park there again.
Yeah, or a lot that's not saleable, if that's what we can do and make it work at some point, but, or if there's another spot that is in one of those areas that may work better.
Well, I mean, is that still an option that I go back to buying, a lot down there? But, when I tried that with Chris, I had to have the working everyday building down there.
That's an
So,
EPA question there.
I mean, is that something that I have to have down there?
Well, we, as an EDA, correct me if I'm wrong, we might be open to somebody having a private lot and then they could charge people to park there.
Well,
if they
that's what
wanted
I
to try.
originally wanted to do, but then I had to have, that I was told no, so then we decided to put the storage lot on it. And then COVID hit and the building was way too high, and then we came in at $320,000 to build it, and we just couldn't do that. I'm open to buying the lot down there, or me and my husband are, and renting it out for truck parking, which is what we originally wanted to
It's a good
do.
solution, I think.
And maybe there's a lot down there.
Conversation.
Maybe there's a lot there that is, that fits that bill that maybe they don't.
It's possible. We do have some requirements there
Yeah, right, I mean, but it's-
as far as
is there options to explore there? at least?
building. Yep.
So, conversation for another time,
Yes, sir.
and we'll keep moving forward to try
Let's
to.
keep moving forward,
Correct.
keep talking.
Yep.
Yep.
For now, you guys vote to let us park down south. You want us on the closest to the field side? Is that best?
Probably that would be the best.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't see what the difference on either side is, just so there's room for cars to get through.
Just because every once in a while, just be mindful of the south exit of the nursing home.
correct.
Mhm.
Don't wanna, something,
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all I would say.
Will that be enough space?
And
I
then,
think if,
talk to Chris Geeson and let him, he should figure it out.
it's enough space for a few.
For sure.
For sure. So,
What
it
does
should
the,
fit our need for the moment.
there's well 3 up in the industrial park. Would there be room to park a couple trailers back there? That's on city property.
It's not, they have to park in the,
Behind it, you mean?
Next to it.
no, because it's not, it's all grass.
Oh, it's
It's
not,
all
it's
grass.
not.
It's not paved. The only paved portion goes into the wells, so
Okay.
worth a shot, but
Yeah, haven't been there, so.
Tony
No,
might have to get pulled out if we.
yeah.
When it first came up, I looked at where the products is, not Poet, but where all the trucks are. And then I went by there, it's like, oh my gosh, they filled up the whole thing. So,
And I truly understand the problem because I saw what happened 6 weeks ago because I was home, and I understand, like I said originally, I don't park on his side because I just don't. I park over here on the corner and I avoid the whole situation, and I've always been very respectful when it comes to the snow and everything, and I don't deal with it. But I feel like the discussion needs to happen that we need to have a place for us to park, and this is good communication, and I appreciate the fact that we've come to some solution, and I'm willing to work to even purchase a lot, and I don't know, some of them are owner ops like myself, and some of them are company. I'm sure the company's not gonna wanna pay for parking, and that's gonna be their issue. the owner ops, I'm sure will want to pay a little bit, you know? Eventually, I will put a building on it for myself to put my truck in and my trailer, and that's what I'll do for myself, and we'll go from there.
We'll see. I don't know if that is allowed out there. Like I said, we have,
Yep,
Because it's
I'll talk to Chris about it, and
Okay.
we'll keep going with it,
Mhm.
we'll see what
See
happens.
what happens.
but I think we can find some different spots around town and accommodate when it's 5 or 6 or 7 trucks, you know,
If
We
it's
should
more
be
than
able to
5,
find
I would be
spots
surprised.
here and there.
I don't think I've ever seen.
No, but
I don't
you
think I've
also have to
seen
keep in
6.
mind those that come through town in the middle of the night, I've seen them park in front of, you know, the lumber side.
Yep.
You know, that just stop, and they're not gonna know either, you know, I mean, sometimes you just get caught with your brake in the middle of,
Yeah, and that's a little different, and that would be allowed as long as there's no parking there currently, because that's industrial.
you know, they just kinda get caught, you know.
Yep, and
Yeah.
it's just for those, I think, that are living here more so that are gonna be there for, let's say, a couple of days, maybe a week. Some of them are, you know, I've seen some. people-
Longer term.
Yeah, longer term than just
A
paying
night,
12 hours
yeah.
to get back.
Yeah, I just didn't want somebody else to get a ticket that didn't really deserve one, that's all.
That's a case by case thing, so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you
Thanks,
very
Tanya.
much for your
Thanks,
time, I
Tanya.
appreciate it. Have
Okay.
a good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Last but not least.
Are you summoning me?
Yeah, I am.
Is this the spot? do I
Sheriff
sit down?
DeGeorge,
Yeah.
yep, make sure the
Sorry.
speaker's on so we can hear you.
I'm good at sitting.
It's not red. It's
I feel
not
like
the hot seat.
I feel like I'm
You're
in
just
trouble.
in, you're in court, don't worry about it.
You're
All
fine.
right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I'll do my best here. I'm not used to sitting or talking into a microphone. I'm used to standing up and yelling. So I'll do my best. I wanted to come tonight to talk about the contract, the service contract. And to be clear, I don't have anything for you all to take action on or vote on tonight. It's just kind of an informational thing that I wanted to share. I met with Sam, and I've actually met with all the city clerks and city administrators that we do contracts with, which is 6 different cities in the county. And I think we've gotten to a point that we've talked about for several years where we need to change the structure of how we provide service to our contract. And just to be clear, it would probably not be noticeable. It will not be noticeable in any way to the cities that contract, but it's kind of an important explanation to give about how we provide service. So I'll start with the history of the contract because I worked here when we first took over this contract, when Rodney retired and when Buck retired in Mabel. The contract was structured as an agreement between the 3 cities, as we all know, Mabel, Canton, and Harmony. And the way it was structured is that 3 full-time deputies would be assigned to these 3 cities and the surrounding townships as the contract deputies. And the cities would then be billed for the costs specific to those deputies and all of the associated costs that come along with providing law enforcement service. The 2 cities, Mabel and Harmony, agreed at that time to provide their own squad cars for the deputies to use. That model was put in place in 2000 by Sheriff Connolly 23 years ago. I think the reason that was put in place is because that's the model that was used in Spring Valley. It was basically an itemized budget, a line item specific to 3 specific deputies. And to the best of the ability of the sheriff at the time and the city clerk or city administrator to kind of figure out what those costs would be. That was never very accurate. It's never been very accurate because we can provide a budget at the beginning of the year specific to 3 deputies, and those 3 deputies could all change throughout the year. They could be 3 new deputies that are coming in at starting pay. So you're budgeting for starting pay deputies. And because they leave and take a different job or however it works, a deputy with more seniority comes in at top pay. Now you pay for that employee, and you might pay for, if you get a couple senior deputies to come in, you might end up paying $40,000 more than you budgeted for just for wages. Health insurance, retirement, all those things go along with it. It's never been a perfect system. It's always been to the best of our ability. We kind of try to figure this out. Where it's gotten to be problematic over the last few years, and I know we're kind of blurring lines a little bit, but Councilman Grabaugh is also one of our patrol sergeants who does our schedule. So if it's appropriate and you have any input in the scheduling talk, please do so if it's okay. When the schedule is made at the beginning of the month, it would either be Sergeant Grabaugh or Sergeant Fugelsted that does the schedule. They take turns. There's a number of shifts that are just open in Harmony, Canton, and Mabel, and those need to be filled even before anybody takes a day off. Historically, the way it's worked is we've filled them with part-time deputies. And there's a line item in your budget for part-time. So the way it works is to fill those shifts, a part-time deputy comes down here and works, and on their time card, they would put down HCM, and then we would bill you guys for their time. That's also how we would fill time off requests for the deputies that take time off. Anytime they take time off, they would fill in HCM, and we would get part-time would get billed to you guys. You would pay part-time, a pretty good amount every year. Law enforcement in the last couple of years has been in a bit of a hiring crisis. We don't have many people going into this line of work anymore. It's not a surprise to anybody, but there just isn't any more part-time. We used to run a stable of 4 or 5 regular part-timers, and we could basically fill any open shifts we had with part-timers, and that just doesn't exist anymore. If you're a licensed officer or eligible to be licensed, there are more full-time jobs open than there are eligible candidates, so no one has to work part-time anymore. So what we've been doing the last year or two is when we have those open shifts, and there's many open shifts every month, we stick a county deputy down here to fill, because our first obligation is always to fulfill our obligations of the contract. Number one, you pay for a day shift and a night shift car, and that's what we're going to provide. So what we end up doing is sticking county deputies down here. There's no mechanism to bill you guys for that. There's no way that we have set up, because that's not the model we've used. So for the last year or so, the county has kind of been footing the bill for filling all those shifts. And what we've kind of realized is we've finally made or come to the understanding that part-time isn't coming back. So we've got to change this model. The other issue that we have is at times we run a little bit short with full-time. We just got a full-timer hired that's going to start in training soon, but for a little while there, we weren't sure. We're not getting the kind of candidates we used to. Nobody is. Again, we expect at some point in the future here, we're going to be probably running a little bit shorthanded, even full-time. So what we've been looking at doing over the last several years, and I think we're to the point now here where we want to start doing this in 2024, is moving to an hourly based contract service that will make things much simpler. It's going to make budgeting very straightforward for all the contract cities. At the beginning of the year, they're going to know exactly what you're going to pay. And we're going to fill a day shift and a night shift, just like we do now, with the same people that are working shifts now. It's just going to legitimize the whole thing. This is what every other county that I've talked to in the state of Minnesota that provides service contracts does. Nobody does this with this old itemized, sort of out of date platform. What counties have done is they use a formula and they figure out to the best of their ability what it costs to put a deputy on the street for 1 hour, which includes equipment, wages, personnel costs, and all the rest of that. The cities decide how much service they want, and the counties bill them for that amount of service. And it's that simple. Then it's up to us to provide you with what you bill for. So for instance, if the city of Harmony decided starting in 2024 and Mabel and Canton together, you want what you currently have, which is a day shift and a night shift. If we say, okay, that's going to be 8.5 hours day shift, 8.5 hours night shift, so it'll be 17 hours a day. The figure we've come up with conservatively is $61 an hour. We can do the math and we can look at it's about what you're paying now, but it legitimizes the process. If we were to try to continue with the model we have now, which to be realistic, we can't, we've got to figure out a way to build in the mechanism for the contract cities to pay the county to fill in those holes in the schedule. And it's much simpler to just do it on an hourly based thing. Is everybody following me? Because this has been working through my head for probably the last 3 years. And I understand that, I'm just kind of spewing a lot of information. So please stop me if you need to. One of the things that I know is important to these communities is to have a regular contact, regular deputies that they've gotten to know, especially during the day for the folks who work in the cities, to know who it is you're talking to. So one of the things that we've built into this model that we want to move forward with is having a regular day shift person assigned to the contracts. So our deputies work 6 days on, they have 4 days off. having one person who's assigned solely to day shifts in Harmony, Canton, Mabel. So they would be your normal day shift contact. Of course, they would have days off where other people would be working, but they'd be your normal day shift contact to make sure that you still have that. A lot of times at night, you're going to have the deputies rotating through, and you're going to have, like, for instance, it might be Todd Reagan, might be Jason Harmony, might be Logan Brand, it might be one of the other deputies who, most of whom have worked in this contract as a contract deputy before that you all know already. Sometimes it's going to be county deputies who haven't worked here, but they're going to be covering. What probably a lot of people don't realize is that's exactly what's been happening for the last year already. What we're talking about moving to, we've already been doing out of necessity. We've been filling these open shifts down here with county deputies many nights out of the month. And I don't think that anybody has noticed any change or lack of service. The deputies do a really good job of understanding the issues in each community. We're not very big. We all know the different towns, and the sergeants, of course, have ownership in these towns, and they make sure that whoever's working understands what needs to be addressed specifically to each community. So, like I said, when we take a look at the numbers and the budget numbers for Harmony, Canton, and Mabel, Harmony pays a third of this contract cost. So we have 3 deputies assigned. We have all the resources that come along with it, and that cost is split 3 ways. Harmony pays a third of that. I think last year, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but as we penciled all this out and looked at what Harmony paid for services last year, this year's not over yet, but 2022, moving to this model, if the contract went to 17 hours per day of service, a day shift and a night shift, and it was split 3 ways, essentially the cost is unchanged other than what would be a normal cost, yearly cost increase anyway, a small cost of living increase. So this wouldn't come at any kind of we don't expect it to come at any kind of a cost increase, but it becomes much simpler for your administration to budget for and deal with. It legitimizes it because looking at the budget that we do every year, or we try to do, and then how it shakes out at the end of the year, it's never right because it can't be, because it changes. This way is just much simpler for everyone to understand, and it ensures that we can use our resources more efficiently. When we've got 3 deputies assigned to Mabel, Canton, and Harmony who are paid only by Mabel, Canton, and Harmony, and we've got 3 deputies who are assigned to the city of Spring Valley who are paid only by the city of Spring Valley, and we've got X number of deputies who are county deputies and are paid by Fillmore County. You really can't or shouldn't be using those people in those other areas because they're not being paid in those other areas. Spring Valley might have more need because they're a guy short than HCM is. Well, the HCM people shouldn't be suffering because we're sticking people over there. But if we put everybody into one pot, into the county pot, and it's up to the sergeants to assign at the beginning of the month who's scheduled where, our resources go much further. You know, the old adage of you have to do more with less. In law enforcement, we're kind of getting to that point where we're having to start doing more with less. We're not, I think, having to do more with less. We're able to do more with less, if that makes any sense in this way, because we've been very inefficient, I think, with the model that we've been working under, and this allows us to be much more efficient. What am I missing?
Well, I like the concept of, one person being kind of the go-to deputy for the city. So it's easy for administration. And then it'd be nice if that person was like really up on our ordinances compared to someone else, and then be a resource for the other deputies. Like, it happens. I don't know all the ordinances. I don't pretend to. And sometimes people say, oh, the police don't even know what the ordinance is. It's like, well, we got a lot of ordinances. Take a look them up.
Yeah.
So it'd just be nice if there was a good system to, know and communicate, whether that's calling somebody or having the resource.
Yeah, you're right. And ordinances vary wildly in every city, not just within HCM, but also Spring Valley and the other towns. So it is really important that we pay attention to those, because you might be familiar with what an ordinance is in Harmony, but if you're working in Mabel, they might have a different ordinance. So I think we've done a pretty good job of making sure guys understand you got to know the city ordinances and don't just take for granted that they're the same. But you and I have been thinking the exact same thing, that person that we have, who's, let's say, the HCM day shift guy or girl, whoever it happens to be, it's going to be one of their responsibilities is going to be to make sure that whoever's coming in to work understands the ordinances for sure, but not just the ordinances, but what are the particular issues that we are dealing with, currently. So if we've got deputies coming into work, they can take a look at the schedule and say, okay, the next 3 nights, it's these deputies. Shoot them an email, say, here's what we're dealing with, here's what's been going on, here's the relevant ordinances or the other issues, to make sure that, they kind of, I don't know if you'd call it a liaison, but definitely if it's going to be a special position to be on just days in one of these contracts. And along with that is going to come the ownership of just what you're talking about, communication and making sure everybody knows who's coming in here, what the issues are that we got going on.
And I can tell the council that I've had nothing but good luck with even our ordinances, our violations and stuff that, you guys went around town and did this year. I emailed the 3 and I said, pick a straw. Who wants to take this on? And they stepped up and they said, hey, I'll be your contact for that. They've always been really good to work with. So I don't see that we're gonna have any kind of an issue with this. I'm actually kind of excited for it to have a single contact versus, having all 3 and say who
Yeah.
gets to pick this year of who wants to do the ordinance reviews and this violation reviews. But they're all really easy to work with, and they always they always check in too. Check into with the city and, do you have any issues and what do I need to be made aware of? So they've
Yeah.
always been really good that way.
The cities, especially in the contract areas, have done a really good job of also making the deputies feel like part of the city team. And that's important. So they're not just the cops hanging out, but
Nope.
they're kind of part of the city crew. They look at themselves that way. So
Mhm.
I think that's helpful. Our goal with moving to this model of an hourly based contract rather than a quasi budgeted 3-person specific contract is that no one notices, that nothing changes. Financially, it's going to be about the same. The people are going to be the same. The hours are going to be the same. It should be, the only people that should really notice this are myself and the city officials who deal with the budget. It should make your life much, much simpler. And the sergeants who it's going to make their life a lot simpler to fill the schedules. So, like I said, I don't have anything for action. This was more of an informational thing, and I would be happy to answer any questions about what this means or what the differences are or anything specific at all that anyone is wondering. And the plan would be then to come back. We haven't done a new contract in a long time. I don't remember when the last time, if it was when Sheriff Conley did it in the year 2000, but it's been a long time. It's an automatically renewing contract. There hasn't been a real big reason to. So what I would,
Did we do a new one when you guys took on the squad car?
we may have done a revised one.
Or
Okay.
updated it, or maybe updated a little bit of language maybe, but that, otherwise I don't have anything.
So I think the plan would be then, this is, I think, an opportunity to share this information. And then I know that everybody's starting to work on their budgets. So to talk about, give you guys a chance to kind of start to budget for next year. And we can talk about what that's going to look like. It's pretty easy to do the math.
I was just doing it on my phone.
Yeah, much easier.
It's a lot easier to do it
So-
versus trying to figure out.
One thing I
Yeah.
hope
The other.
the county board understands is I think you have a much stronger county policing effort because you have these contracts with the cities. So you have more people, more flexibility, more people and pieces to move around the county for whatever event comes up. If you didn't have the contract with Harmony, Mabel, and Canton, and we had like 2 police chiefs, they probably wouldn't be trained as well as our deputies are. They wouldn't be as connected. They wouldn't deal with as many variety of issues and, just become more experienced and better educated. So I think it's a benefit to the whole county that you can have this, because if you didn't have any city contracts, you'd have a much smaller staff, and your abilities to deal with some events that could happen that may be larger than normal or very abnormal.
Yep.
Happen very seldomly. I just think it's a good position. So they should value that, in trying to keep our contract fees reasonable. Because I think the whole county benefits from it.
I think you're right. I think they do. I think the board understands it. I can't speak for them, but it makes the math really simple when we try to figure out the fees for the contract cities. Because the county can't profit from it. They shouldn't, and they can't. They can't make money on this. At the same time, it shouldn't cost the county more money to provide the service to the cities. So what we did, I guess, I'm glad you brought that up. It gives me a chance to talk a little bit more about it. We sat down and the framework we used was the budget, the line item budget that we've always used. And we kind of used that as a reference as to what costs are to put a deputy in the street. And then we included, equipment, training, squad cars, those kinds of things. What we didn't include is, we did not include investigators. We didn't include myself or any of the administrators who do these kinds of things. We didn't include our office staff. And the reason is because we wanted to keep it reasonable. We didn't want to have a big increase. And we intentionally didn't ask the other counties in our district what their fees are until we did our math first. And then we came up with $61 an hour as to our cost. Then we checked, because we don't want to influence. We didn't want to say, well, yeah, but these guys charge this, so why don't we charge this? So we did, and I got answers back from several counties in our district, and it was pretty interesting. Nobody knows what they're going to do yet for 2024, which is what we're proposing. For 2023, for the current model year, Wabasha County was at $57 an hour. And I think in their correspondence, they thought that was low and they needed to make some adjustment, but I don't know what their plan is. Dodge County was at $60 an hour for this year. Goodhue County was at $100 an hour. And Steele County, which is probably a little more comparable to us, they're at $105 an hour. So I know how they all came up with those, because then I asked them all, how do you come up with these wildly varying numbers? And they have a good formula. It's just that some counties add in, all the different expenses, even for prosecution fees and for when our deputies go to court to testify and things like that. We didn't do that because, like I said, what we wanted to do is factor in, although you're going to have investigators, and you do have investigators handling your major cases, we don't want to have a sticker shock as to but the reality is, for those resources, if you had those yourselves or the cities had them themselves, you would pay for those. It probably would be that $100, $105 an hour kind of thing. So I guess the long-winded answer I'm giving you is I agree with you, and I think we're on the same page. And this is why we use the formula we use, to keep it as reasonable as we could, and really what we hoped is the price would come out to the same. And that's kind of what we've got it worked out to.
Well, one thing I was thinking, if you think of the jail, that's expensive, right? So that shouldn't go in to consideration of this
Right.
contract, I wouldn't think,
No.
because Preston's gonna use that jail. Every other city that doesn't have a contract with the county is gonna use that too, right?
Yeah.
If somebody gets arrested. So.
Yep.
Those are the kinds of things that the county just has to do.
Yep.
Right? Should be
Exactly.
spread amongst the whole county. And we get that too, we pay county taxes like everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Like I said, I know that's a lot of information and it's been spinning around my head for a few years. And sometimes it's hard for me to remember that it hasn't been in everybody else's head. So if I got a little into the weeds and you have questions, you want clarification, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Nope, I think the only thing that you were forgetting was the investigator piece, and that was the only thing that we
And
talked about when we met.
Yeah.
And it all makes sense. Very good. Thank you.
so I will, like I said, I'll have some information ready. I'll just keep communicating with Sam. I'm going to Mabel tomorrow, and then I've got to get with Canton. And we'll have the same conversation. And what I hope to do is have a contract kind of ready for consideration, obviously well before the end of the year, so that we all have something in place and know. The one thing that I think I should add is, as we move into a different model, rather than coming in every year and having the conversation about what things cost, I think that we would look at doing what most of the other counties are doing. And they're building in a 3% increase, automatically renewing every year, unless, and there's language in there that says unless it needs to be revisited by either party, which, could be for any reason. I know in 2008, I remember when there was no increases for anything when we entered into recession. That would be an example of where we'd probably get a meeting, come in and say, hey, won't be an increase next year because of this, or could be the other way. Who knows? Probably not anytime soon, but. So, probably a automatically renewing contract like we have now, unless terminated by either party, which is what it currently says. So, you know how to get a hold of me. If anybody has any questions and you want to have Sam, I'm happy to call, text, have me stop in anytime. And we just have, we'll have some conversations to have before the end of the year. We'll work together to get things sorted out. So,
Sounds good.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, does anybody else have anything for our meeting? All right, we're adjourned. It's nice of you to wear a name tag there.
Mary told me to leave it on if they need more people between the ages of 30 and 50.
Ah,
I'm 51. Just missed that. I got it covered, I guess.
You'll do.
they don't like the old, they don't like old blood?
Apparently not.
In case that's objects. And a resolution.
Yeah, thanks, yeah.
I didn't want to say that.
That's all right.
Oh, yeah.
Is that your full team off already?
He's running. He is running.
He's never gonna make it. He's across the street.
He's really running. He's running 40 cops this time, though. That's what I want.
Where's Steve? Huh? Where's the mayor going?
I don't know, where's
He's got a question for somebody, but I don't know who that somebody is.
Oh, I did not know that. I thought he was like getting us to leave.
All right. Well, give me half of the checks and I can sign them so I can.
Will it rain? Not very much.
Did it rain?
Sprinkles don't count.
Pretty much all it is.
Yeah, the county wasn't billing, we didn't know for actual cost, and you leaving money on the table, and the county was putting the bill, I don't think you need to figure that out. Oh, that's right, this one.
No.
I forget. Well, it's some do, some don't.
You know what? I hope somebody at home is watching that.